This program features live coverage of an African safari and may include animal kills and carcasses. Viewer discretion is advised.
A colourful bird just balancing itself in the wind, overwatching the waterhole. A scene that reminds of bygone days. Peace and tranquility. Today we'll be taking you on an adventure. Djuma in the Lowveld of South Africa. Welcome aboard your own live safari into the African wild. Definitely one of the most colourful birds out here in southern Africa. It's often overlooked, the fact that Africa does have many colourful birds, and hopefully this afternoon we'd be bringing more of that. It is a warm but windy afternoon here at Djuma in the Sabi sand in the Greater Kruger region of South Africa. Welcome aboard. You are going to be joining me, Chris, on a live safari today, and our plan for the day is to continue on what we achieved this morning, and our theme will be yet again what the bush provides, and that will come in many forms, we hope. If we do find any tracks of any spots, I know there were some requests this morning, we will surely have an attempt to follow and locate. However, the bush does have much to offer, and that is what we will be exploring this afternoon. Quite a bit of life around this waterhole, and on a warm day like this, waterholes are often a very good starting point for any safari activity. Whether you be out walking, on a bushwalk, sitting in a hide, or even driving around in a safari vehicle. This morning we started our journey in the very thick bush, since it was quite cold and windy, even though it is quite windy this afternoon. Quite sunny, and therefore we opted for a rather open area. Farid, yes, I also hope everybody is buckled up, because this is going to be one ride to remember. Since it does appear that there's quite a bit of activity around it. Let's take a look at what our weather is like.
Good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to Djuma Private Game Reserve here. Of course, also sitting in the windy, not only creased at that dam, but we're also right at the top of quarantine. Got a beautiful herd of elephants sitting also underneath of the tree. It's just because only starting to pick a little bit of a wind that perhaps they're going to start to make their way out. But my name is Andrew. On camera, I have a BK this afternoon. So there are elephants which they are chilling right underneath of that tree, where when we talk about the temperatures actually fall up to about 30 degrees, which of course animals like an elephant, they sometimes cannot tolerate such a heat of the day. But there is not much of the shade here. If we look at the tree, Marula tree itself, I think the sun is coming through that, but it's only much they can do. They cannot do more than that, because there is a lot of evergreen trees around here, except for those we just pointed out today, but they're not everywhere. Those Jackalberry, though they even sometimes share their leaves once the rain begin, but at least those are one of the trees that sometimes hold their leaves for much longer in the winter. So when we also talk about when do the elephants rest, and we always mention how do they decide when to rest, especially when the temperature is like this, they would definitely need to rest, either on a high of a landscape up to the top hill like this, but also to those drainage line systems where it's provide a lot of a shade when they're in there. That also makes quite a lot of these babies of theirs quite easy for them to take the ease in the sand, but also in that bank, cliff, they play around these. Just can see how they flapping their ears. So that's far different than in the morning or when it's the day, where when you find them, they will be actually doing what they're capable of doing, which is all just feed and all spread around quite a bit in that group. And eventually, after these rest, which I'm not sure when they've probably been there, maybe hour or before. So everybody, I'm gonna sit here a little bit with these elephants. Let's go across to Chris, who has got a feather, dust feather.
We are still in the vicinity of the waterhole, and we just briefly spotted a herd of elephants parading past and just took the opportunity to take you there. And I did mention it's quite a sunny day. I must say, it is not that hot, but you can really feel the sun on your skin. It's quite intense. The weather forecasters would probably mention something about the UV index. Elephants do not watch the weather forecasts. They can only use what is to their disposal. And as you can see, this young fellow here is digging up sand and then putting it onto his forehead and his back. That has multiple purposes. A while back we did discuss parasite control, so yes, there is an element of parasite control involved there. But more specifically, it does also act as a sunscreen, especially that top part of the body that's really, really exposed to the harsh African sun. You just see how those branches are moving. It gives you an indication of what type of wind we're working here with today. Interesting that the elephants that Andrew has seen standing under that lovely jackalberry or African ebony tree. And here, a couple of kilometers away from there, we've got elephants doing something totally different. And it just shows you how unpredictable animals can be. I love watching elephants' facial expressions, especially when they drink water or found something that's very appetizing to feed on. It's almost as if you can see in their face, especially the eyes, how much they relish it. Whether that's the reason for the expression, I can't say for sure. Very lethargic. It's almost like it's sleep eating. And their facial expression does, especially the eyes, it does change with their mood as well. If it's scared or angry, that eye just opens up and they just open up the eyelids, and that eye just change into a much more intimidating feature to look at. And that is often what I look at when animals are close to the vehicles. I always try and keep the eyes in my view, because that tells me a lot about their state of mind. We're going to be staying with this fella, and the rest of the group is up further ahead. They are very calm and relaxed. They are feeding very slowly, so we should be able to stay with them, and that is exactly what we are going to do.
So we got a closer look at these group of elephants, which these are in a shade at the moment. And then of course they would probably need to head down to the watering hole afterwards. This is probably when they all rest. Those had to sleep, they already probably done that. These young ones, quite easy for them to take a nap right away, lie on the floor, which also the bigger one, when they want to, they can do that. But you can see how they're protective with all of these, their babies right inside the middle there. So making sure that there's no hassle, because a lot of time this baby can still get hunted by the lions. Duck men, I know yesterday was also trying to go against one of the young ones. Eventually got away, but that was the only attempt. So, for example, if it was no all the adults around there, eventually that young one would be killed. So it's always so important that these young ones, they're close to their mother, and they can also look for security, or they can maybe, when they give that alarm call, their parents immediately, they respond to that quite well by appearing to see what would be happening there with this young one. It's just such a beautiful herd. Seeing them like these, all taking it easy. You can truly tell that they definitely felt a lot of a heat during their movement in the course of the day. So I'm gonna stay put here for a little bit.
He's moved on to another bush. And I'm quite interested to see what he's feeding on. It's another interest of mine, is just observing what they eat. So every now and then he'll find a plant that's not really part of their usual diet, and I firmly believe that they do utilize certain plants for medical reasons. I've seen them taking small quantities of certain toxic plants, and the only explanation that I have for that they somehow realized or learned that these plants could have some medical benefit to it. In this case, it's just a normal grass and general trees that they feed on at the moment. One can note that network of veins as they flap their ears just behind the ears, which is, just to put it in simple terms, it's a radiator. That's how they cool themselves down, in addition to water and mud. The flapping of the ears cools down the blood in those veins, and it circulates through the body, as well as creating airflow over the body if it's a very windstill day. I have a little bit of trivia for our fans. And the question is, how many teeth does an elephant have? And no looking up on the internet. How many teeth does an elephant? And this will refer to an adult elephant. You can send your answers to #WildEarth on Twitter, at FC on YouTube, or you can register or log into our live website, go to the live safaris and leave an answer or comment there. Kids, you can also send us questions if you're younger than the age of 18 to kidsquestions at wildearth.tv. And that would be via email. So the question is, how many teeth, and that includes the two tusks, how many teeth does an adult elephant have? Good day, Bill. Yes, that is a privileged view. And we are so fortunate to, in fact, call this our office. On the other hand, you are live with me on the safari, so enjoy every single moment of it, Bill. We have a number of answers coming in, and it ranges from 52, 50, quite a number of answers, and unfortunately still not the correct answer. And I'm just going to give it another 2 or 3 minutes before I get to the answer. A hint, it's less than humans, much less than humans. And while we're on that subject, us as humans, we have our milk teeth and we lose those usually when we were about, 5, 6? I can't remember when I lost mine. And then we get our permanent set of teeth. Elephants also are born with milk teeth, including the tusk. Now the tusk, like human teeth, only gets replaced once. So they're born with a milk tusk, and about 2 years of age, it gets replaced with the permanent tusk. And the other teeth inside the mouth gets replaced 6 times throughout their lifetime. The last set usually at round about the age of about 45. And this could vary between individuals. And depending on how long those teeth lasts, eventually they will get worn down, and that will then typically determine how old the elephant will get. It gets to a stage where they cannot chew their food properly anymore, and their condition goes down, and ultimately they expire. Very good way of explaining mortality. We're going to be sitting with them as earlier. This is very entertaining yet relaxing.
Good afternoon and welcome to WildEarth. We're live at Eco Training Pridelands and we're starting our walk at Leopard Dam this afternoon. So it's quite blistering hot out there, close to 30 degrees Celsius, and we're waiting for the elephants to hopefully come in towards the dam. As they too will start developing a thirst and maybe come in for a quick wallow and a swim. So my name is JP Leroux and behind the camera we have Gerrit. So our plan for this afternoon is to stick around the dam for first, and then we'll start moving out once it's getting a little bit cooler. And we would like to head to an area which is called Red Earth, and then from there make a circular walk back towards the dam and come and see if somebody else is maybe possibly coming for a drink. For those of you that haven't joined us for a few days and are interested, all 8 of our little goslings or little ducks, the Egyptian geese, is there. And as mentioned previously, they're actually not true geese, but ducks. And that's why I'm using the words ducks, lynx, and geese. So For those that are interested, the difference between the two is the amount of neck vertebra. Ducks have got far less neck vertebra compared to geese. So something that I have noticed is that there's also a number of little terrapins, heads that are popping up and down in the water between those little Egyptian geese chicks. I'm sure at this time they're quite big enough not to be predated on by the terrapins, as terrapins are also quite well known to actually ambush little birds when they come and drink and then drown them, in a very similar fashion as with a crocodile would work. Some oxpeckers that are flying in, coming to sit up in that dead tree. I've over the last few weeks suspected that there might be a nesting site inside there, as they're often frequenting that tree. They tend to also quite often go and sit there, watch the area, make sure that it's safe, and then fly down to the edge of the water to get a drink.
My name is Nomfundo Ndlovu and I'm the Senior Project Manager for the WISA Schools and Youth Unit. I'm a qualified horticulturalist. I'm particularly passionate about supporting schools towards working through their sustainability journey and towards food sovereignty through our food gardening projects. A typical day in my work involves me overseeing our national projects and creating an enabling environment for schools to thrive and succeed in working towards self-reliance and sustainability, and really ensuring that no school gets left behind.
Being nominated to the top 5 and finally being here, for me it's an achievement. Tracks, I believe I did quite well, and the walk,
and sometimes you often drag their feet forward.
The storytelling as well. So yeah, I think that's where I see my strongest point.
And then that was the opportunity of the scraping.
I say the bedding and the call, definitely for me, it was quite a big challenge. Guiding is not all about the award that we have had, but in sharing the experience and continue to do what we have passion and love.
Something very, very interesting. I didn't plan this, but this is a scene, rarely seen. This is what we call a journey of giraffe. So beautiful.
Tune into WildEarth every single day. It's in your nature.
So we're still sitting here on quarantine. It was actually very amazing how these elephants now decided to move about while we were watching them. It was a one big female that probably matriarch. She led itself, and then eventually all of these other one, they have to follow her. It's always so important with elephants. And they have a leader, which is the matriarch. For that, she's in charge. She could lead them any way she feel or she knew there is a best place for them to get food source for everybody. So they don't actually look like they're going to go down to that Gary Dam where Chris was or is. So perhaps they're going to move down south, which is probably another watering station for them. It will be Treehouse Dam there. But Also could happen that it's actually a separate group this time of the year. They move in and out from all over south, east, which is a Kruger Park. So they're controlled by the water source, food around here. And they have a nice rest already. This is actually now, they're already up and going feed. They may actually stand for another 12 or 13 hours again until they decide to rest. But a lot of times, since they don't spend a lot of time moving like what we see on the most antelope species, so once they find a best source of food, and they would be stationary in there. So it's probably for them way of relax, because they only use 3 legs at a time, and that to support the whole body weight of that animals, and the 1 leg will rest at a time. But yeah, with the wind like this, since it's actually very high temperature, results in probably maybe later on the temperature may drop, perhaps cloud later on. This is the way how the weather climate for us change immediately just after that high temperatures. But then, so with most animals, they're more likely same as a human. When we would say it's too much colder, when yesterday we had so much hot, so what the temperatures we need, it's pretty much the same with animal that would they need. Maybe maximum because when it's far too much wind and cold, they won't come out this far uphill like this, then they'll all be place themselves into the drainage line system. That's where you mainly find them, just like this morning. So everybody, I'm gonna just keep searching around here. Let's quick look at the Mara clip.
The Masai Mara in Kenya is an iconic wilderness filled with life. Its inspirational beauty has captivated our hearts on WildEarth for many years. While this season of the world's greatest migration has been missed, WildEarth is preparing a spectacular comeback in 2022. For the first time ever, WildEarth will be running expeditions to Kenya's Masai Mara throughout the 2022 migration season. Hosted by David Githu and Isaac Rotich, you could be a part of the team that shares the wildebeest migration with the world, live on WildEarth's daily safaris. If you're interested, then head over to our website to find out more.
Welcome back on Bushwalk. I'm absolutely jealous when they play that Mara clips, as I would love to go back to the Mara. I really would love to see the migration in full swing. I was there a few years ago and I was lucky to see it in the last little stages. And for me, all I could see was 500 wildebeest migrating in a single group going north. compared to anywhere between 1.5 and 2 million animals that migrate on that route to north and south, depending on the time of year. Also find it quite fascinating is that that part of the world has got 2 rainfall seasons compared to where we only have a single rainfall season. And one of the things that I really found surprising about the Mara was how big the impala rams are there compared to the ones in South Africa. They even got bigger horns. And one of the reasons is that the ecosystem is slightly more open compared to over here where it's much more thick wooded areas. And horns becomes a hindrance for most antelopes when they do move through thick vegetation. I also find it particularly interesting is that the impalas over there has 2 lambing seasons compared to South Africa where they only got 1. And that's normally around by year from November towards December when the lambs will come. It's also one of my favorite times of the year in the bush. But first we're going to need some more rain before that is going to be triggered. We've also just noticed that our first animal is coming down to come and have a drink. We've got a giraffe in the distance through the vegetation. We can just see him. Well, we're going to sit and watch our giraffe a little bit longer. Let's go and see what Chris is up to and what the elephants are doing.
Oh, while JP is waiting for the giraffe to come and drink water, we found our own little group of friends here at our own waterhole. This is still part of that herd that we were with just now, and we just decided to head back to the waterhole to hopefully get some of them drinking, and fortunately it's exactly what happened. These seems to be 2 young teenage bulls, and they're at that age now where they start moving away and spending more and more time away from their mother's herd. Hi, Ricky's also come back with an answer to our question, how many teeth does an elephant have in adults? And she said 45. Interesting how it's trying to sneak out and trying to steal water from the other elephant's mouth. It's behavior that, unless I have seen them doing that with fruits from about February, March, towards the end of our summer when the Marula fruits are around. I have seen that as well, but never before have I seen water being taken from another elephant's mouth, unless it's a form of play or bonding between them. We do know that these bulls do form friendships that does last a lifetime with other bulls. And the fact that these guys are at the moment in the same herd, they are very likely to be related, which could help strengthen that bond. Now that all goes out the window once they're adult and there is mating to be done. Right, so today we have a tie. Tariq and Martha both have the correct answer, and that is 26, which is correct. And So it's 24 teeth in the mouth, and all of those are molars or premolars. So there's 12 premolars, 6 on each side, and 12 actual molars, also 6 on each side. Gives you 24 plus the tusks, which are modified incisors, lateral incisors. So they do not have frontal incisors like we do. Correct. Well done. We'll have to come up with another question to break the tie. Going back to incisor, frontal incisors, there's no need for them since they do not have to bite off certain things, much like we need to bite into an apple or so forth. That is where we need those frontal incisors. Elephants just need to be able to chew. The lateral incisors, the tusks, are adequate to remove any wanted material, whether it be to entry point to loosen the bark or to use as leverage to break a branch, which they can then put into their mouth and therefore then chew it. And we're going to try and find a little bit of cover since this wind is really picking up now. And that might not be a bad idea to go to an area where there is less wind.
So we're on a bamboo, and these elephants that we heard, so they finally, it looks like they're going to make their way towards the treehouse dam. I'm not sure, maybe there's other members in this area from that same group that we saw. And then we first going to go there, treehouse dam, look around, and then we perhaps aim for them when they're around to drink. But now we're going to just look for anything we can find under the shadow. Pretty much, we've already seen elephants, how they've done that when it's too hot. So this is what we're expecting to see animal under the shadow or near the watering hole for a drink due to the temperatures like that. So Treehouse Dam is one of the beautiful watering hole. It has a sufficient water where many of the species, different species of animal, they love coming down to drink. And then it's just along the drainage line where most cats species such as a leopard, they love it to wander around in its drainage line system. Eventually, I would walk past by and then take a sip and then move on. If it happens around. Doesn't look like anything here, but we're gonna just check.
Welcome back to Bushwalk. We're still at the dam at the moment, looking at some birds. A little bird that we have on the screen at the moment is known as a free-banded plover, as it's got 3 distinct bands. And that's where it gets its name from. I just love watching them. They're always busy, moving along the edge of the water. And you'll often also see them using their feet to disturb tiny little insects. And every time that the head goes down, that's a tiny little insect that gets picked up. It's also one of the very few wider species that we find in South Africa all year round, as the majority of them will all migrate. And we see that our first migrants have already arrived early in this month, with my first being emerald cuckoo. And then also a few days ago, I've noticed that the yellow-billed kite is back. And this morning, I saw another migrant, which is a well-known Wahlberg's eagle, which I absolutely love watching. So slowly the birds are heading all back from the north into the southern African region to escape the colder weather that is starting to develop in Europe and further up north. It's also interesting that the birds that migrate from Europe doesn't actually breed in South Africa. However, the birds that migrate within Africa to Southern Africa from areas directly north or south of the equator all comes and breeds in South Africa. Good afternoon, Roger, and welcome to the show. Yes, they are native to the area, and we do find them here all year round. What I also find absolutely fascinating is their little eggs and the way that they're coloured. They are so well cryptically coloured that they match the soil patterns quite often. And quite often I've actually found that they were laid between little antelope droppings to provide them with even more camouflage. We more often actually hear them before we actually see them because they're so tiny. And that piping sound that they produce is typical of being their most common call that they will use. Here we go, another little insect. Well, let's go and see what Andrew is up to and what he has to offer.
So we got a beautiful bird here. It's still wind, so I'm right on a damn wall, so you may experience such very volume of a wind coming through. But yeah, we got a beautiful bird here. So quite a lot of time I know when we discussing about these plums, pretty much in South Africa, it's higher places, farming area for them. Those are fruit. Coming to those birds as well, you find them most in the river, flowing water, static waters, wherever there's a fish. Outside villages where there's not really safe when out there, perhaps anything could happen to them. Just like rain, where they don't flow over these power line or telephone wires, and a lot of them, they lose their legs and it's harder to replace them because they're very narrow and it's so kind of like sticky when you look at them. But in a reserve, we got them very well and they're all safe for sure. Yeah, you're asking, is it originally taller than the green-backed heron? So, yeah, so it's far too tall compared to that green-backed heron. Very much tall. So this is stand on a pretty much 90 or 100 centimeter, where that green-backed heron, 40 centimeter. Somewhere there. So that's actually far different. Even also on the wingspan. But they also, so they participate in the same similar watering hole, so that they probably have to avoid one another always. But this is not only birds done that, animals. Wherever it's elephants, impalas, those animals, they don't want to mix too much with this big animal, because then it may happen sometime they get disturbed by the elephants using these tuskers of theirs. So grey heron usually lays eggs, which I think this is the month, pretty much the August, September, more likely to lay their eggs. When it comes to that, then they're very much, they got to be pair at a time when that happens, so they all both take care of the incubation. And then it's got to be roughly 4 eggs, 3, 4 eggs, 5 eggs there. So that's what there are. And this nest usually placed on these sticky reeds, but also on top of these dry trees, but not far from the water, so that every time these chicks wants to gain feathers and they can able to fly, they can right away fly to the water edge of the dam. Started to search for their food, and of course they still need a lot of care from their parents at that age. They have very actually long beak. Such a bird like this are actually very difficult for them to preen around their neck, and they're not in a group to be able to help one another. And they do make a call, most especially when they're not happy with the arrival who's coming into the area. Whether there's another mate, same mate, maybe the male, because if it's not a business of breeding, then there's no chance they can be together close by. They're always separated. It's just taking the break there, sitting on the sun, but nothing time to waste, so they can also do quite a lot of foraging here at night. But they have very slow flight, but they can reach far. Ian, you're asking what type of heron we got in this area. This time of year we got roughly 2, which is a green-backed, or 3 in fact. So green-backed heron, grey heron, and then black night heron. So those are the one we see, but we have another one, giraffe heron, which is most common when it's highly wet around here. And that actually, giraffe heron, actually very big, more than grey-headed, that one. So it can be vary from 230 centimeter wingspan and a length of 150 centimeters, so they're quite big, where these only stand on a 90 to 100 centimeter. So this now migration thing that's taking place on birds most, I don't know what is seen here, it looks like it's staring at a sky. cannot see nothing. So it's all about some birds would do a lot of migration due to the food, also to breed. So everybody, I was sitting here enough, so I'm gonna keep checking around these roads for anything else we can find.
The scrap here collected a dry grass, put it next to the water hole as the hippo walks down during the warm of the day to drink the water. When the hippo arrives, he saw quite a very nice grass, an area not to resist to rest. And when the hippo went down to drink the water, and when finished the water, he just lied down on the grass. And then, that was the opportunity of the scrappy. You know what? Today is my day to pay the revenge.
This is a battle of two great carnivores of the African wilderness. Whew. Whoa! You don't want to be under those jaws. Definitely, this round goes to the lion. Look at that. Fantastic.
Expect the unexpected here on WildEarth daily.
Welcome back to Bushwalk. We're still at Leopard Dam and we're hoping that there's some animals coming to come and have a drink. We're also waiting for the wind to slightly stop as there's a lot of swirling wind at the moment, which makes walking for us pretty unpredictable. So what are we doing? Birding, which is one of my favorite pastimes. But I also often just like to spend a lot of time in one small little area, and that's when you really observe all the small things within that area. That's also when you learn the most about your environment. That's also one of the great benefits from walking compared to being on a vehicle. There's also a number of different calls that we can hear at the moment. There's one of them, which is one of the scrub robins calling in the background. And there's also a number of grey go-away birds, which was complaining about a bird of prey that was flying over. I find it quite interesting that these birds will actually have two different calls, one for aerial predators and one for ground predators, which is both useful tools if you're a birder and you're after birds of prey, but also if you are looking for ground predators such as leopard, as this bird can also potentially warn you about their presence and making it a little bit easier to find. So while we're sitting over here, I've just been thinking a lot about the Mara, and I was there last in 2017. Good afternoon, Leah, and welcome to the show. Yes, I do have a bird list. I tend to have a list for Southern Africa, South Africa, and then for every province in South Africa, and also for the Kruger National Park. At one stage, I also had a garden list, but I stopped keeping garden lists many years ago, as it's just too many lists to keep track of. Well, coming back to Vimara and my thoughts of it over the last few minutes, and I'm thinking about the wildebeest. So the species of wildebeest that we have over here in South Africa is known as a brindled gnu. It's the same species that we find in East Africa. But one of the differences is that there's more white hairs around the muzzle, hence the name white-bearded gnu. It's technically only a subspecies. And what a subspecies is, it's part of a species that has been geographically isolated from one another. This means that they are unlikely to be able to meet up and mate. It's also believed that's how species will eventually develop. If you've got subspecies which become isolated and over a period of time they will develop in their own species, because they will become so distinct that they no longer can interbreed with one another. Some of the other interesting animals I can remember from my last trip to Vimara is a Maasai giraffe, which has got such a distinct pattern. And then also the Defassa waterbuck. Unlike our waterbuck that we have in Southern Africa, which has got a white ring, they've got a solid white center to their bum. And just like our waterbuck, that also acts as a visual communication signal and a following mechanism between individuals within a group. And for those that are keen on birds, Vimara also offers a host of other bird species which you don't see in Southern Africa. And some of my favorites of those were actually Ruppel's griffin, which is a bird that has been recorded in South Africa only a handful of times as a big rarity. We're going to hang around a little bit longer at the dam. Let's go and check out what Andrew is up to.
So we are mobile. We have left the watering hole there, but we've got another watering hole here to search, which is just straight ahead of us. That will be a twin dam. So that's why sometimes we got to go backwards, because we are on a search for possibly another tracks of the animal that may cross maybe midday. This road is quite busy. You're able to see clearly that if these tracks that are cross on top of all the vehicle tracks here, and then you know that animal is quite fresh that I have walked into the area. I've got impalas ahead of us. And some waterbuck on the right hand side there, BK. Is that good? Thanks, BK. So we got a whole mix of the antelope here. Can you believe there's a visible of also some kudu, so 3 of these antelope species that I have mixed up here. Kudus. And impalas. So now there's actually a good relationship that is happening here, where all of these antelope, they actually on the same menu as impalas. And of course, for that reason, they may work together. But both of them, they can make sound, which is very interesting. Now you can truly see how exactly Damien, you're asking would they get any nutritions feeding on a dry grasses? So what actually here in Lowveld, a very good nutritious grass that we is in the area, it's a buffalo grasses. It's a highly on the nutritions for all species of animals, but also so all animals that eat grasses, they're more likely to feed on the buffalo grass. And then there's also some sweet grass, but they will call oats grass. There's also grow around where the soil is very rich, dark, close to this drainage line system. Those are the grasses that quite a few species that are actually rich in nutrition, but the buffalo grass is the first class, where it's all over around in its area. But so Kuru wouldn't mind really about grass so much, because they're not actually very much on browsing. I mean on grazing. The Kuru, they're on browse quite a lot. So impalas, which they can also mix, they would take pods, they would take grasses, they would take leaf, those dry leaf which is already on the ground. Impala would still pick up those one, but that's also include the nyalas as well. There's quite a lot of female impalas there. So everybody, while we are taking a look in these 3 different species of antelope we got right now here, so let's take a look at the next expeditions coming up 2022 in Mara.
The Masai Mara in Kenya is an iconic wilderness filled with life. Its inspirational beauty has captivated our hearts on WildEarth for many years. While this season of the world's greatest migration has been missed, WildEarth is preparing a spectacular comeback in 2022. For the first time ever, WildEarth will be running expeditions to Kenya's Masai Mara throughout the 2022 migration season. Hosted by David Githu and Isaac Rotich, you could be a part of the team that shares the wildebeest migration with the world, live on WildEarth's daily safaris. If you're interested, then head over to our website to find out more.
I'm extremely excited about that expedition next year, 2022, to the Masai Mara. Certainly a place that I've not been to, but always wanted to go to. Now, it is quite windy today, and you can clearly see that it's definitely influencing the animal movement. So I want to take the time and just pause and just highlight the little bit of color that is in this seemingly winter dead landscape at times. And you can just look at this lovely little purple flower. And it might just seem like a random flower, but the reason that I stopped here and want you to see here is that there's purpose to this flower. And you can see it's got this lovely little purple flower, which is pretty, but that's not the reason that I'm here. Smell that. So this is a wild herb that grows pretty much everywhere around here, and I'm quite surprised to see some of it still here in winter. It could potentially be because this area was cut as due part of our fire break policy, and that stimulated the new growth to come out like it often does. And this is wild sage, and more specifically dwarf sage. There's another variety of it that grows quite tall, and it does smell like sage, but there's definitely an element of almost menthol in there, and somewhat reminds of rosemary in a way. and it goes lovely with lamb as well. Just one of the wild edible herds in this. You can also use this in quantities and rub it on your skin, and those oils found in the plant could potentially help repel mosquitoes and insects. Just a lovely little sequence we got here. There's quite a bit of them around here, and I'm surely going to come harvest a few and go and give to the chefs at camp later. Maybe they can dish up something with it later on, or perhaps tomorrow. Well, we're going to be continuing along the drainage, which is towards our front, and continue to see if we can find anything else. We know that this is the area where we had those leopard tracks this morning, so we'll definitely be keeping an eye out for those as well.
It's green trees. So we have left all of these impalas. Now we're on the move. But just look at the landscape, but also the trees that are already, some of them are very browny. I know there's a fire was going on here, fire break, that was also controlled fire. But along the line, down there is a Mlowathi drainage line system. But this is where now, when you look in this drainage line system, you started to see the difference in terms of the green trees that are there, because then it's still very good for those trees to remain green due to the temperatures never go too much, like to the right up to the top of the land. So this is sometimes when we talk about the animal that they may need to browse, but also into the drainage line system, it's because of the difference between when they're up in the land, far up, and downhill towards this drainage line system. So it's quite green. And some trees along this drainage line system, they are slightly to be evergreen, most of these. And there's quite a lot of these ebony trees, jackalberries, and they grow a decent tree around here. And then in all reserves or tree species such as this combretum, leadwoods, all protected, even outside. There is no way you can just decide and go cut the wood down. You're going to have to apply a permit for it. More likely here, only elephants and animal will deal with those.
Welcome back to Bushwalk. We're still at Leopard Dam, and we're looking at a number of birds as well as different field signs around the dam. One of those field signs that I found here is some giraffe dung. You can see them, they're fairly large pellets, and generally if they fall on hard ground they tend to scatter if you compare them to similar size antelopes in terms of their size of their dung, which is normally in a neat little pile. And then there's also a number of different tracks that we followed. However, the tracks are much fresher than the dung that's over here. So here we can see the footprint. So for those of you that haven't seen a giraffe footprint, it's a fairly oblong track, which can reach well over 20 centimeters in length. And these are used very effectively as weapons against potential predators. As we progress down towards the water's edge, we can actually notice where this giraffe is drinking. And if you have a look over here, this is where one of the front feet has marked. And then if we come a little bit further over here, where the other is right over here where it marked. It's just amazing how broad they can split their legs when it comes down to drinking. And this is an adaptation, and that's that you can't bend your neck, you have to split your legs so that you can get to the water. Something else that we've noticed in the last few days is a large accumulation of algae which is forming at this dam. And this is to do with a large amount of nutrients that's inside the dam. And these nutrients can generally be provided from both elephant that used to swim here on a regular basis, as well as our hippopotamus that used to dwell inside this dam. And quite often some of these algae that we do find in the dams can create quite a toxic algal bloom, which can even poison some of the animals. In general, we see that the algae gets blown away to the opposite side of the dam. The wind is very light at the moment, and it generally is coming from where my back is, and therefore it would push it away. However, with the pool being so shallow and the water and the wind so slow, it hasn't really moved it away. We also often will specifically see elephant will utilize that specific occurrence where the algae gets pushed away and come and drink on the cleaner side of the dam, opposed to the side where all the algae is accumulating. We're going to hang around here a little bit longer and see if anything pops in. And if the wind starts dropping down and stops swirling, we'll hopefully start moving away from the dam. And meanwhile, let's go and see what Chris is up to.
Earlier we mentioned elephants' feeding habits, and I can recall I mentioned a particular fruit that we see here in our summer, the Marula fruit. And I thought I'll just take the moment to show you what the actual tree looks like. And both of those are Marula trees, and they do not have any leaves at the moment, or very little, since they lose them throughout our winter, so they do shed. And they usually start producing new little leaves around about November, and the fruits develop, and usually around February they start to ripen. Now, the tree is roughly or somewhat related to mangoes, or it's in the mangosteen family. And if you look at the structure of the fruit, very similar to that of a mango, just a lot smaller, and it doesn't taste anything like it. But it's got a very hard sort of like seed structure surrounded by fibrous pulpy flesh with a leathery skin that's green and eventually turns yellow. It's hard to imagine this tree that's seemingly dead will erupt into life within a few months once the rain starts. And that is, at that time, a favorite of many creatures. You will typically see elephants and baboons and kudu and impala, monkeys, to name a few, gathering under these trees to eat the fruits. And elephants will even shake these trees to dislodge some of those fruits that are still up hanging in the tree that's not fallen down yet. And the reason I chose this particular Marula tree, since there's hundreds of them around, is one can even see how the elephants have removed the bark, and this could potentially mean that the tree will eventually die. Fortunately for this specimen, they have not ring barked it, meaning there is still a stretch of bark left, and the bark, especially the inner part, is the artery system of the tree that transports nutrients back and forth from the roots up to the rest of the plant. It's the typical African scene with the short grass and another Marula tree. You can see how many of them are here. And as we drive along, just keep scanning with me and you'll start noting more and more of them. It's one of the most prolific and abundant large tree species that we do have out in this particular part of this one does have a few leaves that are still green, but they will disappear soon. A favorite of leopards. I often find leopards sleeping in them or dragging their prey up into the Marula trees. It's just it's got nice firm and very broad side branches, which are often perfect for leopards to sleep on. You see the ends or terminal ends of the twigs. It's almost like little fingers that come out, very typical of this particular tree. Once you know what to look for, it is not that difficult to identify it. I can just imagine being a leopard lying there with this wind blowing through my face, sleeping, not having to worry about lions or anything bothering me. Feel and hear that wind howling. It comes and goes. So hoping to spot a few antelope out in this little short grass area. This is typically where you would see wildebeest impala often gather here as well. I've even seen a very large waterbuck male or bull at times in this open area, and I'm definitely going to try and look for him. I haven't seen a very nice big waterbuck male in quite some time, so let's hope that we can find it while looking for pretty much anything. We're going to continue and clearings, that's where you could potentially look for any predator movement. Randli, I hope I pronounced the name right there. There's a question how many water holes are in the area. I can actually tell you that large dams, there are a number, and I won't be able to tell you the exact number. On Djuma, if we quickly count, it's 1, 2, there's about 4 or 5 relatively large dams, and camera op Darren is going to give us a very useful tool, and we're going to zoom in there quickly, and I can actually show you where all the water holes are. Alright, so just to give you an idea very quickly, we've got the Southern Kruger National Park, and then the Sabi Sand Reserve, which is a privately owned reserve adjacent to the park, and that little square there is the map that you see here. Now here is Djuma's property within that particular one. So we've got the Djuma Dam, the one right close to camp, where the camera is also situated. Buffelshoek, that makes it 2. Jelapan 3, Trias Dam 4, Twin Dams 5, and those are the bigger ones. However, as we go along, I will point out to you that there's a number of small seasonal pans that only fills up in the rainy season. They're usually rather small, and there are hundreds of them around. I can't even give an estimate. Elsewhere, there's quite a number. On Buffelshoek, there are 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. And I mean, if we go further east towards Torchwood, there's another one. There's 2. Sorry, wind is rather 3. And then Chitwa that I do not have on the map at the moment, there's also a number. So there's quite a couple. So we counted 5 on Djuma, and that's the answer that I'd like to give, and then a few others elsewhere in our traversing area. Some of them do dry up. Not all of them will hold their water for the entire year. Some will dry up. Some are large enough to hold substantial amounts of water.
Every year in August, South Africa marks Women's Month. WildEarth would like to acknowledge and thank all the amazing females who have worked tirelessly to share our nature with the world.
We're gonna have to just wait, okay? She's gonna come out there just on my right-hand side, and she can see these impala.
Now you've got to inhale it. It burns. I don't know if it's supposed to work instantly. Go, girl, go! Get her! Get her, girl! Get her! I'm so looking forward to following her story in the future.
I'm really hoping there's 2. I'm really hoping there's 2. But you know, even if there's 1, oh my goodness, everyone!
And I get to share it with you. Isn't that extra special? I get to experience it and show it to everyone.
It's day 1 of the annual South African Guide of the Year competition, and our first foot into this competition this morning is all about tracks and signs.
We're going to call you in one at a time. Just look at it, the information will be there.
Our 5 guides have been tasked by the judges at figuring out who is what is who, and where they go in the bush.
either francolin or guinea fowl, but because of the volume of other deposits in the area, we went with guinea fowl.
Detailing the surrounding that you need to look out for tracks. The details is very important.
Looks like it's a very difficult climb because every time it tries to climb, the ground is breaking, so it slides down. But it's the only one. Look at that. That is the call of desperation with the cub. It's like, what are you doing, mommy? Oops! Oof!
Expect the unexpected here on WildEarth daily.
So we got a very interesting antelope here. Looks like it's been anyway in an antelope afternoon this afternoon, which is actually so cool for a change to an experience such an animal like this to come up about Ngala, 2 male Ngala. So we always talk about how they hide into this drainage line system, but for them to come out into this, up to the top of the land here, it's all about these green thorn or belenates, which are highly favorite for most kudus. The fruits that fell from that top there. I'm gonna move forward because look at that beautiful tree. We're in a main road where everybody needs access through. So we're gonna make everybody's room. These are quite a decent tree out here. These are the one that you can see right in the far front of these Ngalas. So during of a fruiting season, which is all the August and fruit ripe, September fruit is still ripe, and then basically these kind of antelope love it so much to go about, visit underneath all these trees. Sorry, you want to repeat that question? So, Judy, you are, sorry, I got to now. So, you're asking would all the antelope have a writing season? So, impalas, they have a writing season, which is, they are seasonal, many of them. And then the wildebeest also have a writing season, which is almost already begin. But with the Ngalas, there seems to be all year round, so there is no set breeding season for these animals, so they are all year round. So these are Ngalas or kudus, they're all year round. Grey Duikers, Steenbok, pretty much all year round. But a lot of the time with these antelope, since they are not territorial really, that's why you can see the 2 male at a time here, where there's a chance maybe you would see 7 male together. But there is a dominance, there is always one who is bigger than the rest or maybe stronger than the rest. Just an amazing how they move. Like that, they have a kind of like, looks like the yellow socks is on their legs. You might definitely want to see females because they are totally different to the males. They are yellow a little bit, but they still have a vertical stripe. Those stripes that you see there a little bit, that are even visible on the female a lot. So male, when they're fully growing, they turn to that color of a dog, but the yellow legs are always there. So I'm going to carry on. In the meantime, I'm going to be sending you across to Chris.
I was just discussing with Darren, who's on cam-op today with us, that I'm dying to just get one Steenbok that can stand still so I can just watch it. It's also one of my favorites, and voila, there we have finally one that does not run at first sight of the vehicle. They often do that. It's just within their nature. They often freeze and lie down in a little bundle, hoping that any potential threat will not see them, and if they know they're being spotted, then there's this mad dash off, running in a zigzag pattern very quickly to escape the predator. Yeah, so just to write and read, this is the Steenbok. If you translate that, it means rock antelope or rock buck or stone buck, and we're not entirely sure where the name comes from. We know that in Europe you have the Steenbok, but which is not related to this at all, nor does it look like it. And in Dutch, versteen means to freeze, and there's a lot of suggestions that that could very well be the origin of the name Steenbok. Also, when they do lie down, even in short grass like this, they tuck in their head a little bit, they do really resemble a piece of rock or a small boulder. And that could also very well be the origin of the name. Interesting, and there was discussion with Andrew just now about rutting seasons. And this is one antelope that does not have a rutting season. Rutting seasons mainly found with most of the herd antelope, and this is a solitary. Not really solitary, but we refer to them as monogamous antelope or pygmy antelope. Monogamous meaning they choose one partner and they stick to that partner. So you would typically see a ram and an ewe join up. That's where some form of courtship will be seen, and once they've linked up and joined up, it is thought that they would stay together for life, unless one partner unfortunately does not make it due to predation or whatever. There's some impala in the background. And these pairs of Steenbok, they live together in a territory, usually just a few acres at best, and they actively defend it against other pairs. And the males especially will mark their territory through urine and also markings from the preorbital gland, which, if we do get to see it again, you'll see two little black spots right in front of the eye, which is the preorbital gland, where scent oils are produced, and that is rubbed off against plants in order to advertise. And then they tend to forage by themselves, and often at night the pair might join up for safety reasons. I mean, two eyes or two sets of eyes are better than one, so just more eyes and ears to look out for danger. Darcy, lovely comment there. I assume you're referring to the Steenbok. And yes, it is also one of my favorites Well, so is impala. They're just so common. They're around every corner. But they do somehow, and if you look at a Steenbok and an impala, they do almost look like they could be related as a species, but they are not. They are in two very different subfamilies, or tribes as we refer to, in terms of taxonomy. So they are not closely related other than being antelope. It's just a bit of coloration and so forth that are similar, but otherwise they are not closely related. Most of these impala females at the moment should be pregnant already. We are expecting the lambs to be born roughly around November, but that can change with the rainfall. There is strong suggestive evidence that impala could potentially retain the embryos for a certain amount of time to coincide with the rain. So every year the impala lambing season is not exactly on the same date or time, but generally speaking, November is the time when they start producing or start lambing. Interesting as it's literally in a period of about a week, the entire population in this area will give birth, and it's just this flush of impala lambs all over. And that in its own is a great survival strategy. While many of them will be consumed by predators, the sheer numbers of them that are born at once will make it impossible for predators to catch all of them before they all grow quick and strong enough to evade the predators, and so quite a number of them will survive. Oh, our Steenbok is back. The wind is coming up. I just want to find her. I'm going to be leaving this young Steenbok ram. We are quite a distance from it, so probably wide and run away from us, but we're going to leave him. I want to just circle around this open area and see what else it will yield for us.
So we are on a bumble again. So I'm checking a few places here, but eventually I'm going to go down to Chitwa watering hole there and then see what would be around. I'm sure these hippos, maybe basking, sometimes some crocodile in that watering hole where they may sometimes also be basking in the sun. Have a good idea. It's always a good idea for this animal, on these heat, even this croc, they spend a lot of time in the water, but for return they do need to bask. That includes hot sun of the day when the temperature has rise up so much. Since we've seen a few elephants around, all I'm hoping to find is perhaps a giraffe, because they could be around here as well. Maybe later on when we buy these watering hole, they would maybe love to take a drink. Actually, I haven't seen even a wildebeest since this morning or so, and sometimes I do miss some of the other animals that I keep seeing all the time around here. So I'm gonna keep trying around here, see if I get up with anything.
Good afternoon and welcome back to Bushwalk. We're out and about and looking at a number of different field signs. And one of the field signs that I found here is a midden that has been created by an impala ram. These middens are used for a very short period to demarcate a territory. And in the peak of a rutting season, these males will seldom hold a territory for longer than 8 to 2 days to 2 weeks before they get displaced by a stronger ram that will take over the territory and then mate with the females. So one of the things that I do find particularly interesting about the dung is that it's very tightly packed compared to that of elephants. And what ruminants have is that they've got a very complex digestive system compared to elephant, which has got a single large stomach. These guys have got 4 different stomach chambers. So generally what happens, they'll start feeding. Once they start feeding, they will then regurgitate the food and then re-chew that cud and swallow it a second time. That's the second swallowing. It gets diverted by a diverticulum into the second stomach chamber, which is known as a reticulum. It's also the remainder of the stomach chambers are very effective with removing moisture from the dung, which enables the animal to maintain moisture in a very arid environment like that we have over here. So for those of you that are familiar with impala or not familiar with impala, the rutting season generally starts here at the end of March, beginning April, and continues roughly into the months of May, and tends to take off and the intensity around by the dark phase of the moon in May month, but sometimes can still continue into July. So one of the things, if you're really bored out there and you do have guests and kids, we tend to always give a few of these to them. And we encourage them to indulge in a little bit of a spitting competition. So when they're still nice and moist, they have a lot of weight, so they actually tend to spit slightly a little further than that you would be able to spit a dry pellet. Let's see if I'm still in form. Okay, a good few meters, see if I can better that. Sometimes I also cheat, I wait for the wind to come from behind, but I can spit it that little bit further. Sometimes I swirl it on the tongue, I can get a little bit more moisture before I spit it. Okay, that one was not so impressive. So if you are going to touch a dung and you are going to handle it, only do so with the dung of herbivores. Never touch the dung of carnivores. This is entirely safe, otherwise I would not have been doing this. And on the opposite scale, I will never ever ever touch carnivore dung, as I know what type of diseases those bacteria and viruses can cause, as well as the parasites that's inside the intestines, as well as in the dung of those predators. Let me have one last attempt and see if I can better my previous attempt. Not as great as the first. Well, let's move off and go and see what else we can go and find. Well, as we are off walking, let's go and see what the team in Djuma is up to.
So, I'm still making my way down to the dam. It's going to be pretty windy out there, on top of the dam wall. But we'll figure out how we're going to work around in this windy. It's actually quite a less wind. Oh, there's a bunch of elephants. Beautiful herds here. So I'm going to position myself and then just see them. See many of them. Even bigger herds than the one we just begin with there in quarantine. So many elephants around. Loads and loads of different herds make their way into the area. But there is season. Sometimes you may look for elephants, only see maybe one bull, and then they're hardly to see them. This is when they move, when their food is now available, grasses, waters everywhere. So this time of year and around February, you will experience a lot of herds of elephants come back. So February, this is when the Marula fruits, it's available and they're ripe, good to eat by elephants, but also various species as well as human. We eat them. In fact, that Marula trees, they're one of the protected trees in Southern Africa due to the fruits they collect them, especially out of the reserves, but within the reserve as well. So cool that here, these fruits get only eaten by these animals, the elephants and baboons. So it seems here where we are, it's a greater place to be because the wind is now coming less because we have actually dropped down hill. So it's so perfect. But when we go to that dam wall, this is where now it's going to be even more because we'll be posing ourselves into that hill. But they're making their way there, so you'll see how they're going to take a drink. So I'm going to spend time. You know, perhaps there's more of group that they're around we don't see. There's a private house there where they're going, but it's electrified, so they'll probably know that. That's why it's highly voltage for them, I don't think, because otherwise it's quite a greeny there. These fever trees that are also around there, but they would probably avoid that carefully, move around it. One want to be the last. So they have male that is always behind them there. Looks like only one male that I can see at the moment. So they're actually avoiding that house. They're going to go around it that way, where they may delay because on the other side of that there's a wet perch where they may maybe bath. Then we're probably going to be out of reach for them. We can't manage to drive into that drainage line, but I'll see because I'm still around here. Probably going to work it out finally. There's two of them. So there's two of other bull here. So there's 3 males. Those are still, they're bigger, but they're not there yet to compete for a mating. So I'm going to keep up with them to see how far they go down to that drainage line system.
The Masai Mara in Kenya is an iconic wilderness filled with life. Its inspirational beauty has captivated our hearts on WildEarth for many years. While this season of the world's greatest migration has been missed, WildEarth is preparing a spectacular comeback in 2022. For the first time ever, WildEarth will be running expeditions to Kenya's Masai Mara throughout the 2022 migration season. Hosted by David Githu and Isaac Rotich, you could be a part of the team that shares the wildebeest migration with the world, live on WildEarth's daily safaris. If you're interested, then head over to our website to find out more.
And I turned to Shaun and I saw that she had this panicked look on her face. Either she was afraid that something had happened or she was afraid that she was going to miss out on something. But instead of her missing out on those lions, we drove up next to them and I switched off the car so that she could hear what was going on. Now, these lions had killed a kudu, and she could hear these two cubs, both 8 months old at the time, busy pushing and shoving each other out the way to get to the best parts of the meat. And the mom was lying just to the side in the shade. Now, I'd known that before losing her sight, Shaun probably knew what a lion looked like. But I really wanted her to know what this lion looked like. So for the first time in my guiding career, I started to describe to someone what a lion looked like. And I found that, I started to notice things in that lion that I'd never seen before.
Welcome back on Bushwalk. Sometimes when we do look at tracks and signs, they actually bring you down to your knees or flat on your belly for closer inspection. So one of the interesting things that we did find over here was an area that was dug open. I wasn't sure what was going on right over here until I started looking down into this little cavity over here and discovered a large number of mupani bees. They're cribbly tiny bees which are actually stingless, so therefore they cannot protect themselves as a normal honeybee would by injecting a potent neurotoxin into the potential threat. I was wondering what actually was responsible for making the dig, and one of the first signs I found was this of a hyena. And here we can clearly see the slanted axis of a back pad, the two lobes, and then the kidney-shaped toes and the nail marking in the track. Some of the other things I started looking at was what was it feeding on. As I looked over here, I started actually noticing this sticky mass of soil and then couldn't get my fingers open. I smelt it, and it's honey. And this was belonging to that of the mupani bees. So obviously they produced this, stored this right over here, in the hope of using this later in the season. But I was not convinced that it was the hyena that actually dug this hole, due to the size as well as to the little markings on the side. I started walking around a little bit, and on this closer inspection we actually discovered honey badger, which was most likely the culprit. Just want to find our honey badger track again, somewhere right over here where I saw it. Here we go. And this is our honey badger track right over here. So honey badgers have got incredibly sharp nails, which they can use for ripping open termite mounds. They can use it for ripping open bark to get to insects, rodents, as well as to beehives. And in this case, a stingless bee's hive that is underneath the ground. Quite often we also find that these mupani bees will also produce their nest inside trees. And quite often you actually will discover them the nest entrance by a little waxy tunnel that extrudes from the tree. I'm going to go back to maybe to that little spot and see if we can see any of those mopani bees still inside there. I did notice a number of them there, but I've also noticed that there was a number of ants that also started raiding the nest, which is most likely after the honey that's remaining inside here. See what we can see over there. There we go. There's still some of the tiny mopani bees flying around in the inside of the old nest chamber that's been disturbed by this honey badger. This is probably one of the most amazing field signs that I found this week. We're going to move off and go and see what else we can go and find. Let's go and see what Chris is up to.
It's turned out to be Elephant Day. Darren and I just had a conversation, and if one of us ever becomes president, we're going to dub 26 August as International Elephant Day. But then again, none of us will become president. We have the unfortunate job of being out here in the bush, which I'll take any day over being president. And for a change, they're not heading into a thicket. The wind has subsided just a little, and I think that's prompted them to move out into the open a little bit, providing us with a stunning scene with the short grass, the elephants, and then that backdrop of the woodlands where they came from. It's such a typical African scene, and I can spend all day with them. Good afternoon, Lisa. Well, an elephant that's aggressive, and I assume you're referring to us as humans, while the same applies to other animals as well. But typically, let's start off with vehicles. Often, if you approach them in the wrong manner, I have witnessed events where not necessarily guides, but people, especially in national parks where people can drive themselves, approach them too directly and they don't like it, or they leave the engines running. And the elephants don't like it. Often then it will usually start off with the animal turning towards you, and they might lift their head up and open the ears. The flapping of the ears as such is not necessarily a sign of aggression. If you look at this elephant, it's just cooling itself down. If you as a perceived threat or irritation then continues, it could very likely then give the head a shake. And that's the flapping of the ears that you should heed as a warning. They could also lash the trunk out towards you and trumpet. And if you as a threat or irritation, then again do not listen to those warning signals. They could then eventually do a warning charge, often referred to as a mock charge, but I personally prefer the warning charge term because it is not mocking you, it's in fact warning you. So that would be a warning charge, which is typically a charge coming towards you, head raised, ears open, accompanied with some vocalization, trumpeting, and so forth. So those are the main signals that I have noted some bulls, when they are really, really angry, they go down on their knees and they sort of drill the tusk into the ground. It's almost like an accentuation of their size and power. that is a very, very dangerous scenario. That is a very angry elephant, and you should get distance between yourself without running or chasing away. You should get distance between yourself and that elephant then. At close range, often when on safari we are in very close proximity to elephants on the vehicle, you can also see a change in their eyes. I just always look at the eyes. Remember earlier in the show we spoke about the eyes and how almost, sleepy it looks when they feed and drink water. That eye opens up very wide. And you can clearly see the change in their facial expression once you spend enough time with them. And those warning signals are not always in a sequence. Sometimes they're not even all present. An elephant can go from this tranquil state into full-on aggression charge without any other signals. And you need to be ready for those. But like I mentioned again, most often they would give you an indication that whatever you are doing or your proximity to them is not wanted. And often just a minor adjustment, moving back a few meters or switching off your engine of your vehicle often relaxes them again. And on the other hand, also an elephant that are afraid or is bothered by something will often lift the tail up. They'll often lift the tail up and pull it to the side. That's a sign of distress, and that can also be accompanied by trumpeting. We're going to be spending a bit of time with them. This is a lovely sighting. I'm enjoying it, and I'm sure you all are with me are enjoying it even more. In the meanwhile, let's take a look at the upcoming expedition in 2022.
The Masai Mara in Kenya is an iconic wilderness filled with life. Its inspirational beauty has captivated our hearts on WildEarth for many years. While this season of the world's greatest migration has been missed, WildEarth is preparing a spectacular comeback in 2022. For the first time ever, WildEarth will be running expeditions to Kenya's Masai Mara throughout the 2022 migration season. Hosted by David Githu and Isaac Rotich, you could be a part of the team that shares the wildebeest migration with the world, live on WildEarth's daily safaris. If you're interested, then head over to our website to find out more.
Everybody, we got these elephants now about to drink, but one thing for sure, looking at this beautiful watering hole, then, which is also year 2022, it will also be great. It's going to be a great sighting. It's going to be in a dream to find yourself in a Mara. The animal, they're going to be just wild everywhere, for sure. Including these elephants, you see them on the far and open. It's not such a lot of places where it's densely bushes, quite an open area. And experience a lot of these crocodiles in the Mara rivers. They're competing for their benefit, trying to get these zebras and the wildebeest when they're trying to cross that lake. So if you actually find yourself there, it's going to be one of the explorer for yourself in that expedition. So we got these elephants now. They probably have drank, but they didn't actually drink much. See there in the middle there's a young one. You can see how it's well taken care of the rest of the herd. We didn't see that young one when we got them the first place on the other side. And they're just so amazing animal, just to see them moving like that. And you feel the true of Africa. And you're asking would they gather up like this for themselves to keep warm? And they're probably because of their young one. That I'm gonna move forward so we keep up with them. But we've seen the young one that is there with them. Still very young, so everybody would love to play touch the young one, especially these young females and young males that are in that group. They love, want to play one another. If the baby's still quite new in the group, they're more likely to play with it, smell it, but touch. In the end, they would actually know exactly it's part of their member, even though found himself lost, or the minute they return back to the group, they would then recognize one another again. So it was not actually about the warm, but also you see they're actually aiming to move in one direction at the same time. So that's what makes them combine as they move, but it's also because of the protection of the young one. And they all stop. Perhaps the matriarch, she would decide when to move. They're going to stand there and they're going to group up just like that. And then you also find that they came from far away. There are no Tora, they can find themselves back in Mozambique in one group. Rachel is saying, watching the herd of elephants, sorry about the wind. So you never get bored, really never get bored watching this animal. Now they decided to take the different direction. So one of the animal I always refer to, that you will never get tired of when you watch them. They just like, also these mongoose, when you got them in group and they participate on playing together, grooming each other, play, fight, which also in elephants, it's all about the same. These young ones, they have a lot to do. Push one another. It's always they disagree and then agree. It happens. That also has to be make sure the adult it's in control of the group, so it's no hassle there. We're gonna just sit here and see them disappearing in this clearing.
Good afternoon and welcome back to Bushwalk. We're getting into that period where it's less than an hour before the sun is going to hit the horizon. It's generally referred to as the golden hour, and is for me one of the most beautiful parts of the day, especially when that golden coloration of the sun reflects off a coppery coloration of the grass. We're just going to be dead quiet and allow you to enjoy the landscape as well as the different sounds which the environment has to offer.
I'm going to jump right into it with a question. Remember, we had a tie earlier that we still need to get clarity on. Here goes. And this is a tricky question, so there is in fact two correct answers depending on the perspective, and I will explain both. Question is, how many species of elephants are found today? How many elephant species are found today all over the world? Send your answer to Twitter at, my apologies, #WildEarth. And then if you're on YouTube, you can send your answer to @FC. You can also leave a comment on our live broadcasts on the WildEarth website. Question is, how many elephant species are there in the world today? And if you can name them, even better. But that's not a requirement. I'll give you one, the African elephant, obviously, since we are looking at them. We have an answer from another Chris. Hi, Chris. Great name. And he says there is 3 species of elephant in the world. And that is 100% correct. I know there's going to be a number of correct answers coming through, and congratulations to everybody who got it right. Yes, indeed, there's 3 species. They used to be classified as 2 species. The African elephant, Loxodonta africana, and the Asian elephant, Elephas maximus. Fairly recently, the African forest elephant, who was previously believed to be a subspecies of the African elephant, have been placed into its own species status. So therefore, the African savanna elephant, Loxodonta africana, which is what we're looking at now, the African forest elephant, Loxodonta cyclotis, and the Asian elephant, Elephas maximus. Now bear in mind, the Asian elephant also has a number of subspecies, but subspecies are mere geographic variants of a particular species. So yes, it is 3 species, but I would have taken 2 as well as the right answer, because it was only fairly recently that the forest elephant reached its own status as a distinct species, yet under the same genus as the African savanna elephants, showing that they are in fact very closely related. Well done. I think that female on the right seems to be pregnant. You can see, look, their stomachs are always bloated and bulged, but you can see slightly more visible and pronounced bulging a little bit further back, just in front of the hips. And that is a sign that she could very well be pregnant. Now, our gestation period as humans is 9 months. And it could feel like an eternity for any mother-to-be. But how does a whopping 22 months sound? That is a long time. And then to give birth to a calf weighing anything from 80 to 100 kilogram. Incredible. Hammond, that is arguably the question of the day. When elephants give birth, it is quite a family affair. Now, we know already, and we've established through earlier conversations, there's a strong, cohesive family bond between them. In fact, when they do give birth, all the females in the herd will form a defensive perimeter around the mother very closely, even so that you could be at this same distance and almost not see the mother. They form this almost wall around her. A lot of vocalization, a lot of trumpeting. And it's almost the moment that calf is born, everybody wants to touch it and meet the newcomer in the family. And a lot of vocalization. It's almost as if they're announcing its arrival, almost a celebrative type of, and it's just my own observation. This is, it's not necessarily recognized science, but it's almost as if that the excitement goes into overdrive. There's a lot of emotion involved when a baby elephant is born. So they all huddle together, and as a group, they protect that little one until it's strong enough to stand. Now, remember, they suckle with their mouth. They need to stand in order to reach the milk. So, sorry, they need to stand up very quickly, and the mother and the other females will often help it to get up on its feet, and it will then suckle. It needs to get that milk in very quickly, especially that first colostrum start, very thick milk, which is laced with antibodies and energy and so forth, that they need to get in very, very quickly after birth. So no, they do not isolate themselves. The group as such might move into an isolated area, but it is very much a family affair, especially the adult females. They all form this perimeter, and everybody is just so excited and want to touch the little youngster. And imagine being born with all your aunts and uncles and nieces and cousins trying to kiss and touch you, and you just don't know what is going on. Lovely question. Like I mentioned, for me, the question of the day. I've only witnessed it once in my entire time in the bush, an elephant giving birth. Only once where I've witnessed it, and it was so amazing to witness something you study and read about quite a lot in real life. A thought that often crosses my mind is, we know elephants grow to similar age than humans, not 100, but I mean 70 years seem to be as old as they get. Now, I also know that these elephants travel huge areas within the park, and I've worked in the Sabi Sand Reserve earlier in my career in the south and other parts of Kruger, and I'm always wondering, this elephant, perhaps it has seen me before in a car, won't recognize me. And it's just an amazing feeling that 10 years ago in another part of Kruger, I could very well have been looking at the very same herd of elephant, 100 miles from here. Incredible, isn't it? Hi, Monument. In fact, I love your comment. Elephants for me are the epitome of peace and serenity out here in the bush. But I have seen the angry side a few times, and that's a very different picture. And that is why I'm enjoying this so much. being able to have you here live with me and enjoying it with me. It just gives me a sense of accomplishment and reward, knowing that I have created an experience for somebody that they will remember. So, like, you cannot stop watching them. It's so submersive. I often have to slap myself through the face to just remind me that I'm not dreaming, that this is real. I'm right here in Africa, from Africa.
As we celebrate Women's Month in South Africa, we acknowledge and thank those women committed to conservation, working tirelessly both on the front lines and behind the scenes. The Endangered Wildlife Trust is proud of the women who dedicate their lives to fighting to save species, conserve habitats, and benefit people. Here's to strong women everywhere who are dedicated to protecting forever together.
Here at the Advanced Rifle Handling Challenge, which is actually lots of challenges in one to gauge the contestants' skills at different distances and different speeds. This is probably the challenge that the contestants are the most nervous about. So let's get them locked and loaded. Are now doing the Haley's Halt, where they have to run back and forth to a target, turn, take aim, and shoot. And this simulates a chase in a real environment and gets the heart pumping and the blood pressure up. James gave us a demonstration, and the skill involved in this exercise is remarkable.
I've seen something I've never seen here before. Look at these cubs. One is crossing the river. It's being washed away, unfortunately, but I'm sure the mother is going to save her. Look at that. How beautiful. Look at that. One crossing, two to go.
I love being a cam up for WildEarth. The animals coming right up close to you, especially like lions. Sometimes you get nervous, but you have to go with the flow. My favorite animal to film is the elephant because of how big it is. But when it's really up close to you, it's one animal that you would say, I really respect you.
So everybody, we're still sitting here looking at the dam itself. There's quite a lot of birds flying around. But what I've seen here, not many people this afternoon. Not sure why, but it's a big watering hole here. You found that maybe they're on a far end to the eastern side there. We don't have access to the other side. But I was amazed actually just to see 2, 3 all the time where we can see that one with a bird on top. Mainly it's a lot of them there. These are the oxpecker, juvenile oxpecker. The beak hasn't turned yet red. Beautiful dry wood that is standing there, one of these lead wood. And this water hold water for a long time. I can promise you that leadwood tree is one of the stronger wood, and especially the dry one still remain up for long, many of years. There's quite a lot of swallows that are flying quite a lot in this watering hole. And we got a visitor over here, the African fish eagle. It's probably moving away. We've seen quite a lot of these, 2 of the African fish eagle that are always found in this very watering hole here. So that, they are benefiting from hunting these fish, but there's quite a few different fish, including these catfish, but also the tilapia. There's quite a lot of them in this dam, the decent one. While we're with the hippos, so if it happens that there are not many of them, or it's because of that they maybe haven't returned back, all of them into this watering hole. So quite a lot of a watering hole that may find themselves stuck on those, not to return back to this water hole, especially when they have male back there. And it's just an amazing animal, able to survive out here, wherever it's a water, a lake, a river. That's where you see the hippo. But one species that we got in this area, which are hippopotamus. We don't have the pygmy hippo. Those are slightly in size, slightly smaller. But then you also find them in the wet rivers, dams. And those out there, they're more likely to feed on the reeds along the big lakes. But this one looks like it's just resting his head on that dry wood. Judy, you're asking how far would a hippo travel to find a watering hole? So they can travel far away, and when I'm saying far away, usually they would need to get to water hole with distance of probably maybe 70 kilometers, 35 kilometers. For that, they perhaps not gonna make it in one night, which they would have to travel at night. They may spend a few nights in that movement until they get to the next water. But good thing about this animal, they're like crocodile also. So they can sense direction of the water station, but whether they can tell how much water is in there, whether enough or not, that I'm not sure, but they can able to tell there is water in that direction. But how far that also can be, so in case they still make a decision of going there, or maybe decide not to go there, maybe somewhere else. Quite a lot of problem in a drought, because then when that drought takes place, so many of these animals, when they all vanish, look for these watering hole, especially male, they find themselves to survive that time because they weren't welcomed. Wherever it's water, it's occupied by various male that dominate even bigger than them. So when they get into that dam, it's got to be a lot of a fight. The female, they will be welcomed, but then the male, he may maybe stay out of the water, perhaps result in die because of not getting their skin wet. Big hippo would also weigh 2 ton. These are the males usually. Vary from 1,700 ton, so they can weigh quite heavy. It's so perfect that also the wind has died down, and I'm just so happy to see that happen. Can able to hear a lot of various bird sound. Can take that as silent of a moment here. Willem, you asking, would the crocodile attack the newborn hippo? Yes, that would happen. So that's why these animal hippos and the crocodile, they have to avoid one another. Or crocodile always has to avoid wherever is a hippo. And then in that case, avoiding that conflict between, because the hippo won't tolerate carnivores. Not only the crocodile, but the lions, anybody who want to come to drink here. If it's a lion, the behavior from the hippo, it actually changed totally. And they get angry. The same with the crocodile. So it's always better that way, where the crocodile keep their distances. That's why we don't even see, there is a crocodile in this watering hole, but that crocodile has to stay far apart from these hippos. So that only happens a lot of time when the young hippos probably get lost from their parents, out of reach from the parents. Of course, then they get probably killed by the crocodile quite easy that way. So everybody, I'm gonna stay put here, just to listen to the audio of birds and all the hippos.
Welcome back on Bushwalk. We're just about to get to our dam where we normally end our walk, and we're sitting about just enjoying that last little bit of sun before it hits the horizon. We would like to encourage you to do so as well. I'm going to be dead quiet and allow you just to listen to the sounds of the environment.
I want to read you a quote, and something that I carry in my backpack all the time. There is something about safari life that makes you forget all your sorrows and feel as if you had drunk half a bottle of champagne, bubbling over with heartfelt gratitude for being alive. That is a quote by Karen Blixen, which is famous for the author of Out of Africa, of her account of living in Kenya. And that quote sums up safari for me like no other quote. In fact, I would almost go as far as to say, not safari life, but safari live. Live safari, since you are with me here. looking at this amazing sun that's about to set in about 5 minutes. And I have seen sunsets in all sorts of places. Whether you on the west coast, just off Cape Town, or up here in the Lowvelds, savannas of the greater Kruger region, African sunset remains the most dramatic, in my opinion, that I have seen anywhere. And Mia, that comment is so true. It is truly, truly magnificent. It's a time to reflect on the day. And the thing about safari is that you can lie in your bed many years from now and remember how absolutely, truly amazing this was. Do you feel that glow on your skin, on your cheeks? Just absorbing that last little bit of sun rays. Yes, indeed, Nasreen. I think breathtaking is arguably our best word that we can use in the English language, yet it probably does not even fully describe how magnificent it really is. It is absolutely breathtaking. You are 100% right. Can almost see the sun edging closer and closer to the horizon. About 3 minutes before it is going to disappear, and we're going to keep you hopefully with me to experience this. It leaves you speechless. A number of birds around us are announcing that they are getting ready for the nights. The diurnal birds, there's a grey go-away bird with its characteristic kwe call. A couple of francolins around also, just announcing that the day's over and night will soon commence. everybody watching this, let's take a look at the upcoming expedition in the Masai Mara.
The Masai Mara in Kenya is an iconic wilderness filled with life. Its inspirational beauty has captivated our hearts on WildEarth for many years. While this season of the world's greatest migration has been missed, WildEarth is preparing a spectacular comeback in 2022. For the first time ever, WildEarth will be running expeditions to Kenya's Masai Mara throughout the 2022 migration season. Hosted by David Githu and Isaac Rotich, you could be a part of the team that shares the wildebeest migration with the world, live on WildEarth's daily safaris. If you're interested, then head over to our website to find out more.
Welcome back to Bushwalk. We're just about to see the sun setting over Pridelands and wanted to provide you the opportunity to enjoy the sunset. We're going to be quiet and not say a word, just enjoy the environment and all the sounds that might come into the background. Good evening, Monument, and welcome to the show. Yes, you're 100% right. There's very few things that are as therapeutic as a sunset and a sunrise. The only other thing that I can think of is sitting on the beach and listening to the roll of waves, which is for me equally beautiful, and even more beautiful when there's a sunset combined with that on that beach.
Calling all WildEarth explorers, we have a new and frankly awesome travel prize for you to win. andBeyond Phinda Private Game Reserve encompasses an impressive 28,000 hectares of protected wildlife land in KwaZulu-Natal, South Africa. As you have seen on WildEarth, andBeyond Phinda showcases one of the continent's finest game viewing experiences and is well known for close-up sightings of the elegant yet elusive cheetah as well as the rare black rhino. Sign up to be a WildEarth explorer before the 16th of September and you and a friend could be heading to the magnificent Phinda Mountain Lodge, where you will spend 3 nights escaping the real world at this ultimate safari location. WildEarth explorers, it's in your nature.
We got there, he had probably moved couple of 100 meters down the river and it was about 10 meters from this causeway. So I radioed the lodge quickly and just asked them to bring a land cruiser around and some tow straps. So we thought we were going to try be heroes and save this giraffe. And now a big bull, probably over a ton, he's a big unit. Got the tow strap one side of the giraffe and managed to get it around him with a boat and the other edge of the tow strap obviously back onto the bank. So we made this U around him because he was lying quite close to the bank. And yeah, we put that land cruiser in low range and we just gave it hell and pulled that giraffe and the tow strap slipped up and we thought, oh no, it's going to slip off the top of the head, and it caught on his ossicones at the top. And that last 10 meters pulled him out onto the bank and he battled. He was obviously quite weak and all that.
You are cheeky. That was a brave decision. Amber Eyes is... Oh. That is so magic. That was absolutely wonderful. Amber Eyes just gave that cub an enormous hug.
Expect the unexpected here on WildEarth daily.
So everybody, we're still sitting here at this beautiful dam. We've seen various birds that are about here. Some greater blue-eared starling, which is also one of the beautiful starling around here, especially coming down for a drinks. But we've seen this bird going over these older elephant dung, disturbing that for the perhaps some of the insect that may be in there. What would consume on these elephant dung at this time of year? There is no beetles and so on, but the wood termite, those are the one. But they've been eaten by various birds. So starling and these hornbills, red bulls, yellow bulls, hornbill, they would specialize with these. The wood termites and also termites itself. Just wander around close to that watering hole. Crocodile would spend its energy, all of it, to try to catch small birds like that. You asking, have we seen a migrator bird returning yet? Yes, I think it was a warbeck eagle was seen in Gary Dam recently, a few days ago, which is one of the signs that we're already pretty much entering the summer yet. That's a wagtail. you would experience something about this bird that's moving around there. A wagtail, so its name comes according to what that bird do. So when it's static, you would see it wags, kind of like forth and back. That way. Oops, going for some sort of insect. This bird have been surviving this way. We may maybe worry so much when there's a crocodile and all of that may feed on these, but they've been doing this for over and over the time. You know, they're actually water birds. That's how they are. They feed on the bank of the water. That bird specifically doesn't actually like to go very much into shell of water. Would just wander around in a dry perch like that. Oops, looks like they don't get along there with the starling. Some Nazarene here commenting, saying that glorious, beautiful birds they are, especially the starling itself. I know, of course, looking at the color, I mean, the sun is gone already, but you can still tell this bird is metallic color it's got, especially when there's sun shining through it. Look at that wagtail, what it's doing there. It's called a pied wagtail, so that's what it's called. But it seems to be getting along, these two species, different species of bird here. Perhaps in competition of the same source of food. Megan, you saying you love the marking on his African pied wagtail bird. It's just a stunning color. There's white above their eye. There's like a streaks, you know, kind of like a line across to the back. But since they don't get along, you can see what's going on here. So eventually it changed position to the far end. Now we've got a black lapwings there that are also in search for the food. And this one, they can be very noisy. Black lapwings. They're very in color, male and female. A black lapwing or Smith lapwing. They're very in color, and they all just have that marking of black and the white. Especially on the chest, it's always pitch black, and then top of the head, there's another color there. Can be very in sound as well, so they make sound, but they can wander around also at night, these one, around the edge of the water. Oops. Nancy, you're commenting saying they move so fast. Of course they do when you compare or look at these, very skinny legs of theirs. And just to see how they use them, they're incredibly fast. I only saw that when I was going against that drongo that is also flying around in that area. Oops. Somebody's getting murdered back there. So they would feed on the various sort of like worms that are pretty much on the edge of the water, but some of them they will be under this soil. Oops, now the noises begin. It's all of Egyptian geese. This is what we also been mentioned when there is a pair here, male and female, and they will defend their positions, both male and female, against the arrival. What we actually just heard, the whole of the other group, they were just flying, trying to land here, but they realized, somebody is in this bank, and they'll probably just vanish, fly across. They wouldn't mind Egyptian geese also spending a lot of time far in the land, away from the watering hole. But this is actually mainly happen during the wet season, where it's a lot of growth, plants that are about out there. They won't participate on fish or anything, so they are vegetarian pretty much. You're asking, would always Egyptian geese found in pairs? Those are already a couple, they're always couple. You do find them in such a group sometimes when those are free, a lot of males out there, and then of course you find a whole bunch of those. So there's a system where one male and one female, they all stick around together. When you come across such a bunch of these up in the far land, away from the watering hole, those are just because none of them have dominated the female yet. See a lot of talking in the background there. It's just because of the other vehicles are also checking on the far side of the watering hole. Oops, that's ibis. Somebody we haven't actually watched. I'm gonna sit here still.
After an incredible sunset, there's still a little bit of ambient light left to just see the last little bit of movement of these antelope before they themselves will move to a more resting type of behavior and to ruminate and re-chew what they've eaten during this afternoon. Soon the night creatures will emerge. And your safari will then take on a very different coat. Everything will look different. Smallest bush. The trees become almost menacing in appearance. We'll just take a moment to submerge ourselves in this tranquil African scene on this wide open plain here at Djuma in the lowveld of South Africa.
So we're still sitting here, as we saw that there's a nice new visitor, very noisy bird, but I love it, the sound that they make. Hide-eared ibis, they are so beautiful, with this very long beak of theirs. Started to be very much interesting here, those various bird sounds. The ibis, you got them sometimes in group, 3, 4. So there is actually a name in Shangaan, but not actually 100% Shangaan, Kotlilanga means forget about when the sun sets, so you eventually realize it's dark without knowing that the sun was going down, and then flying back home or going back home, then it could be a mission. But what were actually named, the only thing they spend a lot of time focusing on what they need for feeding on. In the meantime, it's getting late. When they realize it's too much late, and that's when they now shout a lot as they fly off. And they feed on most insects, some spiders, some snail, whoever's around. And they can breed anything from around, so this is in November to January, depending where you are in this area. In Cape Town, probably if you're out there, so July, in that area, you probably witness these birds nesting out there. And their nest is actually covered with all lichen material, which is those are the fungi that grows in wood. Oops, I'm not sure why it's biting the wood there. Perhaps it's all a preparation for a nest also. Yokosho, are you asking with the... Just actually, I couldn't get the end of the question there, if you can get that repeated. So you go, sure, I'm just going to actually go according to what I just got. Maybe where do they lie their eggs? So usually up in trees, that's where this bird actually lies their eggs there. And that's got to be anything above, up to flogs of anything 75, maybe 100 centimeters, or can be sometimes a 2.5 meter up in those trees. Some can be near the watering hole, but up in trees. And this top of these buffalo weavers' nest would be the best spot for them to place their nest right on top. But I'm not sure, probably one of these trying to steal some of the material there. And they will lie about 4 eggs. And they're kind of like slightly olive green. So beautiful bird. It also have a slightly kind of like very unique curl on their wings. Like purple slightly though, but shiny there when it's shined by the sun. So incubation, it's about 28 days. Why, Tisha, you're asking with a bird territorial, so not all of them are territorial, but some are territorial. So most eagles territorial, most owls are territorial, and then some of those are usually pair. They're most likely to be very much territorial. Some of the kingfishers also, they are territorial. Martial eagle are one of those. Even these are African fish eagle. They defend their watering hole, their territory. And this is when they're all just going to make sure there is no other male that are coming in. Especially male will be very strict in terms of seeing another male coming to the area, trying to fight him off. And some herons, grey heron also, they will defend their territory. So it's quite a various bird that are territorial, but not all of them. So that territorial sometimes also apply in a different way where, for example, noble duck, the male would have various females in the group where you breed with them. There is sometimes time you would leave them, go on his own. So some bird would be territorial, but how do they, social structure work? Are there just the two of them, or a territorial but defending the whole flogs of maybe 15 group? But then all these females are married to one male, which is kind of like pretty much African style in humanity. Some tribe, which is many of us. So everybody, while we are taking a look at these beautiful ididas, let's take a look at the upcoming next expedition in Mara.
The Masai Mara in Kenya is an iconic wilderness filled with life. Its inspirational beauty has captivated our hearts on WildEarth for many years. While this season of the world's greatest migration has been missed, WildEarth is preparing a spectacular comeback in 2022. For the first time ever, WildEarth will be running expeditions to Kenya's Masai Mara throughout the 2022 migration season. Hosted by David Githu and Isaac Rotich, you could be a part of the team that shares the wildebeest migration with the world, live on WildEarth's daily safaris. If you're interested, then head over to our website to find out more.
All right, so the sun has set. We've had such a lovely sunset, one that even I will remember for a long time. And now we're out again, and we are at that transition time where everything diurnal, daytime is starting to calm down and finding their little spot for the night. Wow, look at that view. And the nocturnal creatures just haven't emerged yet. This is a perfect time for animals like leopards, the so-called crepuscular animals that are active just before and after sunset often. And if we're very lucky, we might just find one. I have not seen any tracks, and it's also now a time where tracking becomes quite tricky. So the plan for the remainder of our safari for this afternoon is to just drive and enjoy. We've had such an eventful afternoon that, you know, anything that comes up now would be a bonus. And I silently do hope that we do find a leopard. But as you know, they can be challenging if they don't want to be seen. Look, I'm right there with you on that. I did say silently, but I actually am hoping for one. But then again, that is safari, and you can set goals and desired outcomes, but it's largely down to luck. We can employ every single skill that we have. We can send out trackers if we need, you know. If the animals don't want to be found, they won't. And therein, for me, lies part of the enjoyment, is to never know what you can expect. Every morning is different. It's so far removed from daily life where we are bound by deadlines and meetings and specific time frames and so forth. Once out here, it is dynamic. And that, for me personally, is the beauty of it all. And the enjoyment. And the great thing is, we're still going to be here tomorrow. Bridget, it is a lot more difficult tracking them at night than in daytime. For instance, in daytime, I can still get out of the vehicle, walk around a bit, look at the tracks, even follow it a little bit into the bush to look and to what direction it's moved to. At night, that is not advisable. Your visibility is lower, and especially predators, lion leopard will act very differently towards humans at night. They know that they have the superiority at night. In daytime, they're rather scared of us on foot, not in the vehicle, because they don't see humans. They see a vehicle, and we're just part of that. So yes, tracking, you rely mostly on sight, and obviously being dark, that goes down. I have heard about trackers that have tracked animals in the dark, and I'm not sure that that is necessarily the application, not being for tourism. That would be to find specific animals for research purposes. But there's two things. Firstly, it is substantially more difficult to see any sign of animals at night, tracking. And secondly, it is a little bit more dangerous to do that, since you don't have visibility, or at least 360 the visibility. You're going to be walking with a light, obviously. So it gives you a bit of a tunnel vision. So it's not... What I can do at night is, if there is tracks on the road, and we know that cats love to use roads, just like us, they will take the path of least resistance when they don't need to move into bushes. They will use these pathways. Animals create pathways. We've seen hippo paths, elephant paths. And once I start with the spotlight, and mind you, that's not a bad idea. It is now. So a technique that I often use is to go down a little bit and have my spotlight at an angle, which somewhat illuminates the track for me better. It creates a bit of contrast in order to see the track better. And I can follow a track, and any good guide and tracker will be able to do the same if it's on the road. But once it goes off, it is... So nighttime, it comes largely down to luck. Well, you can work in an area where an animal is known to frequently move up and about. You can also, for instance, if there was a known sighting in an area, you can also go and work that area. And exactly what we're going to do today. We are just heading to that drainage that runs off the Twin Dam area, doing a bit of a loop. We know that it's an area favored by Tlalamba, and, well, let's hold thumbs.
RSA has a long history, over 90 years, of being involved and even pioneering aspects of the conservation sector in South Africa. Over that long history, we have realized that all of the issues that we are facing both locally and globally are due to human impact. Therefore, we need to concentrate on working with people, and that is what WESA does. What makes me passionate about the work that we do at WESA, and in particular the work that I engage in, is actually connecting with people. Currently the work that I'm working on is working with youth in a skills development program, and just to meet the youth and to hear their stories and to bring them opportunities that we hope will have some impact on their lives really, really fuels me to get up every morning. A huge shout out to the women that I work with, as well as to all the women that are contributing hugely within the environmental sector, both in South Africa and in the world.
Our competitors are in the room behind me right now for the birding challenge, where they have to look at pictures and identify the birds, and then separately listen to bird calls and identify them. But it's not easy. This is going to be the toughest one. Here we have the previous year's winners. You can see they're trying to see if they can remember all the answers, and look at them taking a sneak peek.
Oh, it's going to be in trouble now. Oh, this is unbelievable stuff. Here comes a hippo in too. Go, Impala. There's a hippo coming in. I can't believe what we're seeing here. This is what we normally see in East Africa. It's all over. Hippo leaping at the crocodile now. Everything's gone underwater.
Expect the unexpected here on WildEarth daily.
So far, nothing to report. We're still lurking around, and we're now in the area that we want to be, using the last little bits of this afternoon live safari, and it is so wonderful of you to join me and Darren behind me for this, I must say, rather eventful afternoon. Now, typically, it's difficult to predict what a leopard would be doing now, and they're all different. Some will be sleeping still, some will be moving. It all depends on what's happened to it the last couple of days. If it's had food, it might be sleeping. Here's a scrub hare. I don't know if it's going to stay intact. They normally just dash off as soon as we stop. And we just want to move over to the IR camera, and there we go. Nice little juicy snack for a leopard, eh? Hello, buddy. So this is one of two species of hares found here. Hi Alan, the smallest creature I've tracked successfully was in the Kalahari, and we tracked a pangolin right to where it went into an aardvark burrow, and we waited there for it to emerge, and eventually it did. One of the highlights of my career in my life. And that would be the smallest creature I physically tracked on foot. When they get smaller than that, it becomes nonsensical to try and track them. I mean, try and tracking a mouse, though theoretically possible, I mean, it's not something that realistically you would want to track. But yeah, I would say in terms of size, I would say then a pangolin. It gives me a little bit of an idea for tomorrow. You'll have to wait and see. Coming back to this fellow, that's one of two species of hares that we have in South Africa. This is the scrub hare, very likely. Also have the Cape hare, and they look very, very similar. Quite difficult to distinguish. Even experts get it wrong. And then we've got 4 species of rabbits native to our area, well, to South Africa, not our area. We don't have any true rabbits in the Kruger. Well, at least not here. And one of those rabbits are only found in South Africa, the riverine rabbit, and it's also the most endangered mammal or larger mammal in South Africa. They're found in the Karoo, which is a semi-desert arid region that is found in the central southern parts of the country. The other 3 rabbits are types of rock rabbits found in some of the mountainous areas. Red rock rabbits, which you don't find here. We don't have any mountains close by. So you might ask yourself, what is the difference between a rabbit and a hare? Now, they're very much the same thing. Part of the larger family of lagomorphs, or hares. It's an order of mammals by themselves. They're not rodents, as many people believe. They just have very similar teeth, or in size as teeth. But no, rabbits and hares are on their own order of mammals, totally separate. And other than appearance, I mean, rabbits have shorter, stockier bodies. Hares, have got more of a running movement, longer ears. But the main difference comes in behavioral things, and also the way they breed is arguably the main sort of factor where you sort of divide between the two. So let's take hares. Hares live above ground, they sleep above ground under bushes or under foliage, and they also give birth above ground. Rabbits give birth in burrows. And in the case of our red rock rabbits, it would be small little cavelets and so forth, but it is subterranean. And they also give birth there. Now, here lies the major difference. The babies that are born with rabbits, they are what we call altricial, so they are helpless at birth. Their eyes are closed, much like your puppies when they give birth. They close eyes and they're totally hairless. And that their eyes will only open in a few days' time, and so they're very helpless, need to be protected, and it makes sense then to give birth in a burrow. Hares, like we just saw here, giving birth above ground, and especially with the variety of predators we have around here, their babies are what we refer to as precocial, meaning they are ready to go, like antelope. Moment after they are born, soon, very soon, within, let's say, an hour or so, they are able to run, fully covered in hair already. And eyes open, and there they go. And that are the major differences between rabbits and hares. So it's not really appearance. Yes, there is some slight differences, but it lies in their breeding behavior. Interesting. In fact, I have a question for our viewers. Okay, my question is, what is the correct term? The correct English term for a baby hare, not a rabbit. What do we call a baby hare? The correct term. Remember to send your answer via Twitter, #WildEarth, YouTube. You can send it to @FC, or leave a comment with your answer on our website on the live safaris. We've got a couple of moments left for today, and let's see if somebody can get that right. What do we call a baby hare? And I'm hoping to find a few interesting answers there. Hi, baby. Scrubbies are about, I mean, it's obviously difficult to see on screen how big they relate to anything, but they're about the size of your average pet rabbit that you will see at home. Perhaps just a bit more upright. I would say probably about 20 centimeters high when they're fully upright. Their ears are about 4-5 inches long, roughly. So that gives you, they weigh about 2 kilograms roughly at best. So that will give you more or less a good idea of about the size of a small toy Pomeranian dog. Hi, Joy. It's great for you to answer a question again. And yes, indeed, it is called a leveret. That is the correct answer. Baby hares are called leverets. Fantastic. I'm going to have to the spotlight again. I was just I wonder who comes up with these names, by the way. Who decided one day that, now, I'm going to call this thing a leveret. Just a bit of needless, purposeless thoughts there. Temperature is dropping a little bit. Not cold, but you can definitely feel a little bit of a drop. It wasn't very hot today, it was just very sunny. I mean, this morning was rather cold or cool. And now it's still not to that stage where I need to get my jacket out. It's definitely getting closer to spring. I'm going to be heading into a drainage line soon where I might lose signal. So we're going to continue looking for whatever the nighttime bush will provide us.
So we on a bumble, so that leopard I was hoping to get reach of, it's actually went into the area where we cannot go, but I'm just actually keeping the radio maximum in case maybe she return, because that's the cut line with the chitwa in that area. It's where the shasha is, but the sighting still going there with the guys trying to keep up with her with that leopard in the thick bushes. But they're heading kind of a south, still there. So we're just trying to see if maybe we can maybe find anything else. Take it easy drive around here. I haven't seen chameleon during this drive, so I'll be happy to see one. And it's actually amazing how we spot them because of they're actually one of these creatures that are, when you shine a spotlight, you easily pick them up if you exactly know what you're looking for. Look out, search around for anything we can find in this evening. I'm already operating with a spotlight. That's one way of, looking at night. So you rely on the eye reflection of this animal. That's what we actually looking for. There's a chance to see the tracks on the road, but to rely on the tracks on the road at night is not actually guaranteed. Because a lot of time these animals, they cross the road, they don't actually use roads when they hunt. If you want to talk about cats, leopards, they would only use the roads when they are maybe scent marking their territory, or maybe they lay against or near the road. That's just where you maybe bump on them, or you maybe see them on top of the mound when they're all static. What is actually very much different things about trekking at night. But we gotta rely on also the sound of animals, of night birds, even just the regular birds when they make sounds, these guinea fowls, these francolins, you know they get disturbed at night. And if you investigate the area, you're more likely to find maybe it's an owl trying to go after them, because owls move at night, or maybe genets as well, or a leopard. Craig, you asking what are the most predators that are active at night. So from the lion species and the leopards, and then the hyenas, those are the highly profile of the carnivorous species that they're actually more likely to be highly mobile at night. And then also I know we have a caracal in the area where they're very difficult to be spotted. Some sable that are also mobile at night for a hunt. But for sure, we've seen lions, we've seen leopards. Oh, is that, what is an owl? Oh, yeah, it's an owl. This is what we were looking for. So I'm going to actually take my light off there. Gotta look at that. The rose owl. That's what you're looking for at night. You just take it easy. Pretty much on a hunt, that owl. And it's one of the biggest owls around here. You spend a lot of time sitting in these branches, but looking around. When we got here, I almost not knowing what I have spotted in there. Thought maybe it's just a collared cat. Such an incredible. So this is what at night it's all about. Oh, flew to the ground. I may actually need to shine around. I'll drive forward. They didn't actually fly off far away. So you're commenting, saying that it's it's a big owl. It is actually a big owl. Yeah. We still got it there in the branches. So actually it got down and then flew to that another tree there. Its bees actually stretching its beak. Perhaps had something to eat there. It's trying to still waking out whatever it was. And it's so quick. They have actually incredible last sight at night where they would work on any of movement on the ground, and they were able to see those. So everybody will sit here and just to see what these owls do.
The Masai Mara in Kenya is an iconic wilderness filled with life. Its inspirational beauty has captivated our hearts on WildEarth for many years. While this season of the world's greatest migration has been missed, WildEarth is preparing a spectacular comeback in 2022. For the first time ever, WildEarth will be running expeditions to Kenya's Masai Mara throughout the 2022 migration season. Hosted by David Githu and Isaac Rotich, you could be a part of the team that shares the wildebeest migration with the world, live on WildEarth's daily safaris. If you're interested, then head over to our website to find out more.
For me, the best part about being a guide is being able to live out in Africa's wild places and being able to share that with people. Of all the challenges, for me, the one that I'm probably the most comfortable with is the game drive. I think that's what I do most days, so that would probably be what I feel like I'd do the best at.
Almost like someone's put little Lego blocks up there and made this perfect little sort of statue, and there's another one further along as we drive.
One of the challenges I'm the most nervous about would probably be shooting. I think on the day there's always quite a bit of pressure and intimidation, always associated with it, but I guess we'll see how it goes. I hope I'll win this competition, but if I don't, it's still been an experience of a lifetime, and I've learned a lot and met a lot of really, really cool people.
Goodness, look at its wobbly legs. Oh, I don't believe it. I can't believe we've actually seen it. Oh my goodness. Oh, careful, careful, careful. Oh no. Oh, it's okay, little one. Okay.
Expect the unexpected here on WildEarth daily.
So everybody, the owl, the beautiful owl that we have, it's gone. It's pretty much on their search around here. There where we just spotted anyway. But it flew off, trying to look. This time it looks like it flew far from the road. So we're going to continue, look around. They're more likely to be very much solitary. Unless if they're raising their young one. You never know, so we're going to keep an eye around here. And they're more likely to be moving around quite a lot in one place. It's what we've been talking about, being territorial bird. So this is an area where this bird patrol and search. So you're asking with the territorial animals, you know, define their territory from the other different species? No, from the same species. So pretty much from the same species, nothing to do with the other different species. You know, talk about lions, leopards. Their territory can be set within the same area. Doesn't bother each other. It's something to do with this territory. It's not about defending the meat or the food they have in the area. So it's all about the females, dominating the females. And that's why there's nothing to do pretty much on the other species, different species. So it's got to be always concern the same species. But also to birds, it's all about the same thing. So defending the females. So that's why it's actually comes far different to a territory and the big and the home range, where now the home range, it's free axis. Those animals that are free range, they have a long axis area where they can cover around, no limit, and they can mix up with maybe various other the same species that doesn't really conflict take place in there. They always get out very safe. So everybody, I'm gonna just take a listening around here. Now we're coming pretty much in the end, but we're just gonna quickly take a listening around, see if we can hear any of a sound of birds or any alarm call. That's very quiet, so it doesn't look like really sound that I can hear any of the birds or even these nightjars. But everybody, we will love to thank you so much for joining us this evening. So we're coming very much on the end of the evening show, but we're all hoping to see you all tomorrow bright and early, tomorrow morning. For that, we can able to see and enjoy together the scenery of the African bush. Goodbye for now, everybody.